Hello everyone, welcome to Daily Current Affairs series. Today we will discuss about 30th July current affairs. Myself Sunny Sandeep. Welcome to my channel Gear Up for Group 1 exam. Let us discuss the today's important current affairs. Today, that is 30th July, we will celebrate it as a World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Trafficking is a crime that we are exporting one person to and one person from one country to another country. That means exporting one person. That is we are fixing a cost or we are fixing a price for one person. That is known as a trafficking. It is a crime. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, that is a guardian of United Nations Conventions Against Transnational Organized Crime. There are different types of crimes. We know that there is a drug exporting and like a opium and some different types of drugs are in that UNODC. It will come under the trafficking also. That's why United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime is keenly watching about to protocol to prevent, support and punish the trafficking in persons. Not support, suppress that trafficking in persons. That is 30th July, World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Next one, National Educational Policy 2020. Here if you see the highlights of NEP 2020, single regulator for all higher educational institutions except for legal and medical colleges. There is a single regulator. Previous there are different types of regulators for every institution or for every colleges, but now there is a only one single regulator for all higher education institutions. The second one, fee fixation under the broad regulatory framework. Third one, MPhil programs to be discontinued. After that, common entrance for admissions to universities and colleges. Common norms for private and public higher education institutions. That means there is a common norms for every private and public institutions. Here, affiliation of colleges to be phased out in 15 years. Affiliation, that means there is a one type of college, that is under the JN2K there are different affiliated colleges is there. Here, state-wise mechanism for granting graded autonomy to colleges. There is a NAC or graded system is there. Next one, multidisciplinary education and research universities, MERUs, MERUS, to be set up at par with the IITs and IIMs, Indian Institute of Technologies and Indian Institute of Management. Here the important word MERU, that is multidisciplinary education and research universities. Here 10 plus 2 structures to be replaced with 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 and curricular structure. Here vocational education to be integrated from class 6th only. Next one, Sanskrit to be offered at all levels of school and higher education. HRD ministry, now we will call it as a or renamed as a education ministry. These are the some highlights of national education policy. The important one are that is HRD ministry to be renamed as a education ministry, and the 10 plus 2 structure is replaced with 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure. There are two important. These are the two important highlights of national education policy. Here, the first amendment is done in 1986. After that, after 34 years, now 2020 has come up with the national education policy amendments. Next one, All India Tiger Estimation Report 2020. Here, India's tiger population now stands at 2967. It is a All India Tiger Estimation Report 2018 is a 4-year exercise. That means previous one in 2014 it is happened. After that, before that 2010 happened. Before that 2006 it has started All India Tiger Estimation. After that there are some exercises happened. Now if you see in 2018 tiger estimation report that gives the India's tiger population now stands at the 2,967. If you see that tiger population across the world, that is India has around 70% of tiger population, and its source area is about 2.21% of the country's geographical area, spread out in 50 tiger reserves in 18 states. That is, India as tiger success. That means if you see in as across the world, that is almost 80% of the India's tiger is 80% of the globe. If you see in the Indian states, that is Madhya Pradesh with 526 tigers in previous years, in previous exercise report, that is in 308. Next one, second one, Karnataka with 524 tigers in previous year, that is 406 tigers. After that, Uttarakhand stood at 442 tigers with third place. Here in Uttarakhand there is a Jim Corbett National Park, very very important for tigers. Jim Corbett National Park is very important. It is located in Uttarakhand, has the most number of tigers at 231. At 231, Jim Corbett has the highest tiger density in India at 14. Here Jim Corbett National Park has the highest tiger density. At the same time, most number of tigers of at 2231. Next one, bad bank. What is this bad bank? What are the pros and cons, and what are the criticisms and towards that one or against that one? If you see the first we will see the definition of what is this bad bank. Bad bank is a bank set up by the government to buy the bad loans and other liquid holdings of another financial institution. Suppose one bank having the bad loans, that means that loan is not repaid more than 90 days, that we will call it as a non-performing assets. If it is less than 90 days, we will call it as a performed assets. There is a keen difference between performed assets and non-performed assets. That's why if it repayment goes beyond that 90 days, we will call it as a either NPA, or more than that 90 days we will call it as a bad loans or other liquid holdings of another financial institutions. Banks and NBFCs, non-banking financial institutions, we will call it as a financial institution. Next one, the entity holding significant non-performing assets, I told that will sell these holdings to the bad bank at marketplace. Here, thus clearing its balance sheet. Here, if you see every bank's balance sheet, it has to maintain a bad loans and profit and loss at the same time. That's why if you see in provision norms is there. If you are familiar with some economy concept, then you will know about provision concepts. In a simpler words, I will tell. Suppose one bank has NPA, that means one bank has a bad loans. At the end of the financial year, it has to give the profit and loss account or a balance sheet. Balance sheet means there are some from April 1st to March 31st, and we will call it as a one financial year. That means from 2019 April 1st to 2020 March 31st, we will call it as a one financial year. For that, there is some different types of financial transactions. In that, we have to some debits are there, at the same time credits are there, and some loss transactions also there. That we have to count, that we have to make it as a one statement, that is known as a financial statement. Here, after that making financial statements, that in that balance sheet or financial statement, we have to give the provision to the bad loans. Bad loans means every bank has to make a provision norms or provisioning to bad loans, then it will show the balance sheet in a financial year. That's why by putting these bad loans and liquid holdings to the another bank or a bad bank, we will call it as a bad bank. Thus we will clear that balance sheet. Here that is the view of the bank, government of the setting of bad bank. Here the proposal envisages setting up a asset reconstruction company, that is ARC is very very important. Asset reconstruction company, that means for bad loans there is a ARC, that is asset reconstruction company, that will take care of everything. Here if you see that previous RBI governor, that is Raghuraman ji, is telling that there is against that bad bank. Why? Because it's a bad bank is just a shift loans from one government pocket, that is public sector banks like State Bank of India and Union Bank of India, to another bank. That means that bad bank. There is no improvement, there is no success in that setting of bad bank. Here anyway, as a competitive aspirants, we have to know at the same time pros and cons, at the same time criticisms and forwards to that bad bank. Next one, in the series of previous paper analysis, we will see the 95th question. Consider the following: carbon monoxide, methane, ozone, sulfur dioxide. Which of the above are released into the atmosphere due to the burning of crop biomass residue? Here, A 1 and 2, B 2, 3 and 4, C 1 and 4, D 1, 2, 3 and 4. Open biomass burning. Before going to answer this question, we have to know about burning of which type of gases will come if we burn the crop or biomass residue. Here, open biomass burning, which refers to burning of forests, savanna and grasslands and crop residue, releases large amounts of trace gases such as nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, methane, non-methane, hydrocarbons, that is NMHCs, and carbon dioxide and particulate matter, that is PM10 or PM0.5. Here, if you see that 95th question, that means carbon monoxide will come, methane will come, ozone will come, sulfur dioxide will come. That means the right option is D is the right option, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. With the burning of crop and biomass residue, these 4 gases will come out. With this we can conclude our video. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. Gear up for Group 1 exam. This is Sunny Sandeep signing out. Take care and bye-bye.